so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Alongside me is T.J. Inman, except he's in South Carolina, and I'm in Sub-Zero, Indianapolis. It is time to talk 2026 Indiana football schedule. I know season just ended, national title for the Indiana Hoosiers, and just a week later, you have the 2026 schedule release. We knew the opponents way in advance a couple years ago. Now you finally have the dates. TJ, welcome in. How are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, it's the reigning national champions schedule. Indiana, of course, now a game that everyone else circles on their schedule when it comes out, right? I mean, it's the target is going to be squarely on the chest, on the back, on the head. The target is going to be everywhere. And that's Indiana. It's a position they have not been in before. But I think it's one that we are probably quite confident the coaching staff will figure out how to handle this offseason. I think it's an exciting schedule given a couple of the stretches. It's a schedule with 8 home games, right?
Yep.
And that's a big benefit, especially considering how good Curt Cignetti has been in Bloomington with IU home games. And it's one that I think features an opportunity for another fast start with kind of those first 4 games at home, games that IU should be heavily favored in, I would think. So a lot of interesting things to discuss, and I know we're going to get into that here, but the first thing that jumps out is when that bye week is, right?
Yeah, it's week 10. First of all, I want to clear it up because people had this question on our boards and on social media. The reason that IU and all of college football had the double bye weeks the last 2 years is because there were 14 Saturdays between Labor Day weekend and Thanksgiving. This year, the calendar goes back to 13 Saturdays, so they only get 1 bye week. IU's bye week, you can see it, the whole schedule scrolling on the bottom here. The whole bye week is, or the IU's bye week is week 10, which comes. It's not terrible if you look at the big picture and think IU's going to make another playoff run.
Right.
It is if you just look at the regular season. It's really late, so it comes November 7th. The good news is that there is no game for Oregon, so you could go watch Oregon at Ohio State and things like that. But it is a little late on there. But look, it's better than Northwestern. Northwestern has their bye week in week 2.
Mm-hmm.
They need to kind of fix it. I don't know how to fix it. There's a lot of things to fix with college football anyway, but it's not ideal. You'd like that bye week, around week 7, week 8. So
Northwestern starts with South Dakota State.
Good luck.
Yep. That's an interesting strategy to schedule them for your opener. Then they get their bye week. Then they play Colorado, which is, who the heck knows what Deion Sanders' team is going to look like. And then they are coming to Bloomington for week 4. So that's very interesting start. Not one that I think you'd be happy about if you were David Braun. But they're going to have to deal with that. I think what jumps out about Indiana's bye week is what comes right before it that makes it such a difficult stretch. Obviously, the teams that you're playing are very good, but it's that we saw it this season, kind of at the end of a long stretch of games, how kind of worn down Indiana looked. Survived Penn State, and then really they were fine against Wisconsin, but you could tell that they were beaten up, they were worn out, they needed a break.
Yep.
And the coaching staff, Kurt Cignetti, acknowledged as much. He was very public about that. Hey, this is coming at a good time. We need a rest here.
Yeah, I overlaid the schedule on top of us here, TJ. So people could see it. But yeah,
but you look at that, it's Ohio State, at Michigan, and then Minnesota before
and don't
you
forget
get to
you have three road games
right.
in 5 weeks there.
Right.
And Nebraska's a tough road game too. I don't know. We don't know what Nebraska's going to look like next year. Heck, we don't know what most teams might not look like next year. But that's a brutal stretch in the middle of the year, kind of like the 3-game stretch they had this year with Illinois, at Iowa, Oregon, except you had a bye week in there to do it. So yeah, that's the stretch that's going to define the season. You should get off to let's say 5-0 start heading to Nebraska,
right?
And we'll see. And then you have the big home game against Ohio State, which I don't know if they're going to make that the homecoming game. Usually that's the week of homecoming. If I were in charge of IU, I would make the Northwestern game the homecoming game.
Yeah.
Because one, it's going to guarantee – hopefully IU sells out all the games this year. That's the hope, that you don't need a homecoming game against Northwestern to have a sold-out crowd. People should want to come see the reigning national champions without that. But, why waste your homecoming crowd on Ohio State? Because that crowd's going to be large anyway. So,
yeah,
that's the schedule. I'm going to take it down here so you could look at our lovely faces still.
And I think that Minnesota game on Halloween, that's an opportunity to do something with basketball, that weekend, to where it would be some sort of, whatever you want to call it, Hoosier hysteria, practice event, scrimmage, whatever. On that day, I know people like to kind of package their weekends to where they could get a basketball game with a football game in the same weekend and make a big travel thing out of it. So I think that's something to look at. But the opener, North Texas, that is a team or a program that just finished in the top 25. It's not going to look anything like what they just had. 52 new players for that team, 52 new transfers, I should say. Totally new roster. Obviously, head coach goes to Oklahoma State, takes his best players with him. They hired Neil Brown, who is a former West Virginia coach that I thought did a fine job at West Virginia, but not good enough to avoid being fired by the Mountaineers. Taven Jackson, former Indiana quarterback, former UCF quarterback, is now in Denton at North Texas. Don't know if he's going to start yet or not. That's going to be determined, but you'd have to probably consider him the odds-on favorite to get that job. So that's an interesting wrinkle there. A totally new North Texas roster. It'll be kind of difficult to prepare for. You have no idea what system Neil Brown is going to want to employ and what they're going to look like. So that'll be a bit of an interesting wrinkle. Howard, an FCS team that that's going to be a set the score game and
That
figure
might
out.
be one of those games that gets moved to a Friday night or something. We'll
It
see. I don't
certainly
think that's one thing that stood out on this schedule was that there was no off the bat Friday night games, which is I think good for IU. But we'll see. They usually make those moves later in the spring when the TV networks do their draft.
Yeah, Rutgers and Boston College is on Friday night that week. They've already announced that one. Rutgers and Boston College on Friday night. That doesn't prevent Indiana and Howard from also being on Friday night, but
Yeah.
that's
But yeah, I mean, we've seen the non-conference schedule under Kirk Cignetti, and we already have Brett McMurphy, who seems like a miserable human being, already complaining that they're one of 4 or 5 Big Ten schools that don't play 10 Power 4 opponents. But we saw how that worked out.
cool.
It doesn't matter. So North Texas, we talked about them. If 2 years can make a pattern, the opener, IU doesn't look their best in the opener, and that could be a tricky opener. Openers are always tricky. That could be a tricky one.
They do invest in that program. So the transfers that they brought in, 22 of them are former Power Conference players. And they did retain, 40-something players off a team that won double-digit games. Their best pieces left, but they're going to have some talent. That'll be probably one of the better teams in the American. So at minimum, you're looking at a decent team that will almost certainly end up in a bowl game.
Yep.
So that's not a challenge in terms of are they going to win or lose, probably, but that one could be a good test to knock off the rust and work in the new pieces against a competent opponent. And that week 3 game against Western Kentucky, that's a very solid program. We know that.
We know that and it's not only the scares that they put into Tom Allen's team, but Kevin Wilson's team as well.
That's right.
In 2015, their offenses are usually high powered. Their defenses they're okay. They're not great, but they usually score a ton of points.
Yep.
They have great skill position players, and it's a foe that IU fans should be familiar with. This IU team is not going to be familiar with anybody, but that's a game that they'll if they think they could win, their fan base will. It's not a huge fan base, but their fan base will travel and fill up the visiting section, stuff like that.
For
so
sure.
It's a fun non-conference game that has put a lot of Hoosier fans on upset alert. Let's talk about the new conference foes this year, TJ. Not the new members of the conference foes, but teams IU hasn't played in a minute. You bring back Northwestern on the schedule. The last time they played in Bloomington was 2019. You bring back Minnesota. They came to Bloomington in 2021. Rutgers comes back onto the schedule, and then for the first time, USC comes in. And you get the first trip out to Washington, which to me was the most disappointing part of the schedule. And it's stupid to get upset about it, but I was looking forward to a nice, late September, maybe October trip to Washington, and it's stuck the week before Thanksgiving when it's going to be miserably cold and nobody's going to want to sailgate. So, but yeah, which of these new teams on the schedule that we haven't seen in a couple of years are you most excited to see come to Memorial Stadium?
I think unquestionably the highest caliber opponent there is USC. That's a blue blood program that has high hopes for this coming year. Number 1 recruiting class coming in. And by that time in the season, those guys will have gotten a lot of playing time.
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting not a whole bunch, but at least some of their incoming freshmen to have big impacts. And if you're playing them in week 2 or 3, those guys are going to look like freshmen. You're playing them in week 11, well, they're going to either have hit the wall and be worn out, or they are going to they're going to hitting their stride and no longer playing like freshmen. Also of note, that game against USC, the Trojans and the Hoosiers both coming off their bye game. At USC, it's actually the only opponent that IU has that has a bye week before they play Indiana.
That's a nice change. I mean, it didn't really matter, but
right. That is, and USC, a bit of an interesting schedule for them. They get a bye week in week 7. They play Wisconsin, they play Ohio State, and then they get a bye week in week 10 before playing IU. So
they get 2 bye weeks?
They do, because they are playing in week 0 against a opponent to be determined. So, yes. Yeah. So the Trojans should be pretty rested and fresh with coming to Bloomington having played 2 games in 4 weeks. That could be an interesting factor to look at by that time. I think that was interesting. I think Minnesota is a tough opponent regardless because of how physical they typically play. They become more tough when you are playing them as the final game before your bye week. When you are, I mean, the Gophers, that's going to be Indiana's 9th game in a row. And if you put them into just that kind of picture of what 2025 was, that's the role Wisconsin played for Indiana, and that was a game IU did not play very well. So, who's to say? I mean, every season is different. Every team is different, but if it follows that script, you could see Indiana coming into that game against Minnesota running on fumes, having just played back-to-back road games, and then taking on Ohio State and then going back on the road to play Michigan.
Yep.
So Minnesota becomes a tricky one. The Northwestern game, I have no idea what to make of them, but there is an interest with Chip Kelly coming in as offensive coordinator. And then I believe Preston Stone transfer from...
No, they got Aiden Childs.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That was this past season. Preston Stone was still the QB. So Aiden Childs with Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. So they might look awesome. It's possible that Northwestern beats South Dakota State and then beats Colorado and is 2-0. It's possible they're getting votes. In the top 25. They went to a bowl game this year and return a good core from that team. So that's an interesting game as well. At Rutgers, I don't know.
Yeah, large IU contingent there.
And they've lost quite a bit from their team this year that was historically bad on defense. I would have to think that they'll improve a little bit on that side of the ball, but still not expected to be a quality defense. So, a schedule you look at and say, hey, we should be 5-0 if we are the team we think we're going to be, heading to Nebraska.
Yep.
And Nebraska, if you look at their schedule, Ohio, Bowling Green, regular North Dakota, at Michigan State, a rebuilding Michigan State team, and then Maryland. You never know with Nebraska, but there's no reason they should not be 5-0.
6-0. No, 5-0. Sorry, I saw the red-white game is on the
no
on
reason.
their schedule.
No reason they should not be 5-0. And if that's the case, and you've got Indiana going to Lincoln with both teams sitting at 5-0, that becomes a huge game for the TV networks. Almost certainly, I would think Big Noon would draw that one. Although,
oh yeah, we're gonna have a lot of noon games, buddy.
yeah, that's one that I think IU fans can either appreciate. You're going to get more Gus Johnson. You're going to get more Joel Klatt. You can like it or not, but I think that is probably, given the TV numbers that IU did this season, you're going to see those networks taking Indiana against any quality opponent as a very high draft pick when they are making their selections. So I think it's really interesting that Indiana only with 4 road games, but of those 4, you're looking at Nebraska, tough place to play.
Yep.
You're looking at Michigan.
Haven't won there since man landed on the moon.
Right. And they, new coaching staff there, Kyle Whittingham. At minimum, that they're going to be tough.
Yep.
That's a requirement for his teams. So then the final one at Washington, whether you never know, the week before Thanksgiving, right there off the sound. But Damon Williams,
I'm interested to see the dynamic up there. Look, Husky Stadium or Alaska Airlines Stadium, whatever they call it now, is a very, very tough place to play.
Yep.
But yeah, the whole Damon Williams thing, they have talent. It's
absolutely.
Just, your starting quarterback said, "Peace, see you later," and then got sued and not released from his.
Yeah, he found out the door was locked and he couldn't leave.
Yeah, and so he's like, "Hey, I'm back." And so,
never mind.
How do you respond to that? But TJ, 8 home games this year. IU had 8 home games in 2024. They're 15-0 at home under Kirk Cignetti. You'd probably say that they're gonna go. What do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4 games before Ohio State.
Yes.
Probably safe to say they'll be 19-0 at home heading into the Ohio State game. All the home games help. It's a big money generator for IU. It's great for the town of Bloomington as well. Does IU need to figure some things out? Yes, I've talked about this on the board a number of times with parking and figuring out how to hire a parking company that knows how to park cars correctly. Would make a huge difference. And then just the money you generate from home games is definitely going to help with some projects down the road that are hopefully coming. But it's a chance to, again, build. I know IU's coming off a national title. They put up massive numbers on TV ratings, which I don't really care about because it's not money in my pocket. It's money in somebody else's pocket. But it's also a chance to continue to build this fan base up with 8 home games, and the home schedule is really, it's pretty doable to go 7-1, and if you beat Ohio State 8-0, the 3 non-conference games you should win. You should beat Northwestern at home. You should beat. Now Minnesota's at the end of that. I don't want to get sued by the SEC and say gauntlet, but end of that 9-game run to open the season. USC coming in too. We'll see how they play in the cold. Now that I say it, it could be one of those 70-degree days in November, but we'll see. And then you got Purdue at home. So, you're looking at worst 6-2 and at best another 8-0 season. That's one of the keys to, I was asked on another podcast, what are your expectations going forward? The expectations don't change. Like Cignetti's standard doesn't change. My expectation, win your home games, win your rivalry games, although Michigan State comes off the schedule this year, and win your non-conference games. and then see what you do against your top 25 foes. And they have FBS schedules has the rankings next to these teams, and it's way too early for that. But you have like Ohio State's ranked 6th, which I think is a little low.
Yep.
USC will come in ranked. They're ranked 13th preseason. And then you have road games at number 18, Michigan, at number 19, Washington. It's like if you split those, you're in good shape. You're at 10 wins, and you're likely hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment, at least as fair as one can make, sitting here, 200 and whatever it is, 215 days or whatever from kickoff. So we will obviously spend a ton of time this offseason going over what to expect from IU's offense, defense, all of that. But yeah, the expectation level, I think anybody going into it saying, yep, we're just going to run it back, repeat 2025. I mean,
there's
awesome.
no repeating it. We said this like after 2024 when everybody's like, well, who's the next Indiana? There is no next Indiana.
Yeah.
This team was so special that, not everything needs to be a comparison.
Right. I think that expectations of, hey, we're going to win another national title, that's possible. It is. But if that's your baseline expectation and anything below that is deemed a failure, I think you're setting yourself up for a bit of a miserable life as an IU football fan moving forward.
Yeah.
You see other fan bases like an Alabama or like an Ohio State where the fan base becomes insufferable at the slightest sign of distress. I hope that Indiana football is still a ways away from reaching those levels, and I don't think that we're going to see that. But I do think it is fair, given the investment level, given the resources at hand, and given the remarkable coaching staff that we know is in place, I do think it's fair to go into a season expecting like, hey, if we stay healthy, there's no reason Indiana can't be a playoff team and a contender once again.
Correct.
I think that's fair to say.
That should be the tippy top of the expectations. Because I say this with basketball teams, like anything could happen in the playoff. You could have the number one team, and all of a sudden, some guy goes off 9 for 11 who's never hit a 3-pointer in his life, and you're going home. And it's like, okay, is this season a failure? Well, yes, but not really. You accomplished a lot. You just, in that one game, didn't do it. So, win your home games, beat your rivals, make the postseason, and that could change to, make the playoff, whether that's hosting a playoff game or getting a bye, or, we'll see how the format changes down the road as the so-called people in charge keep kicking the can down the road. But that's the thing. IU fans should expect to go to the postseason. They should expect to go to the playoff until proven otherwise. Kirk Cignetti is 2 for 2 on playoff berths. And, would it be, can you say disappointing? It would kind of be disappointing if you have to go play a road playoff game. But you're in the tournament, and you have a chance. They've proven they could go on the road and win games. So, it might be disappointing to lose a game, but they've only lost 2 in 2 years. So that anytime that wall hits, it's going to be a slap in the face because it hasn't happened in a long time.
And you got dates to circle there. North Texas, September 5th.
Yep.
That's the home opener. We'll find out what Indiana plans to do as kind of a honor, celebration, whatever, unveiling at Memorial Stadium for the national championship year. So that will occur.
They better do something. Like
Right.
they can't just put a little plaque on that south or north south end zone side
Right.
and say, "Oh, this is what we're doing." Like they need to put up the 2024 stuff and they need to put up 2025 stuff.
Yeah,
I
and
would
that
also
should
put up the
happen that week.
1945, 1968, all these bowl teams because, your history is better than a lot of people give it credit for. But yeah,
And that
home
should
opener.
happen that week, right? That should happen for that game, I think. But
It should, unless you want to do it for homecoming. But I would do it that game. You can't go 3 home games
right.
minimum,
Yeah.
4 at the most before a homecoming game where you do that.
Yeah.
So
I've got that. I've got the Ohio State game.
Yep.
That one obviously a big deal, and I've got the USC game as well. As the dates to circle, you could always include the bucket that one on there. But look, if we go through and say, "Oh, this game's interesting because of this," and this, well, we'll have every single IU game as a date to circle, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So I'll go with those 3 as the dates to circle. And I do think it's a fun schedule, particularly because of those 8 home dates. I think that's great.
yeah, I'll go. The opener is obviously one of them I'm circling. Ohio State's the other. I would either take, if I'm going to go to a road game to circle, it's either Michigan or Washington.
Yeah.
Those Michigan IU hasn't beaten, I think, since like 1967 up there.
Right.
So it's a chance to go to a historic venue and you have a chance to win. Just like going to Ohio State in 2024 or Oregon last year or Penn State, whatever. It's a trip that, if you have the funds to do it. Or Washington, because Washington's one of the special venues in the sport. But those are 3, and automatically I always circle the bucket game because it is the biggest game of the schedule every year. It's your main rival. You're in state. It's a chance to win 3 in a row again. Anytime you could shove it down Purdue's throat, you circle the date. So, all right, that does it for today's podcast. TJ, you can find us at HoosierHuddle.com, on X at Hoosier_Huddle. IU has a whole bunch of visitors on campus this weekend. We'll have a breakdown of that. We'll get into more schedule breakdowns as the season gets closer, and then we'll have spring ball updates when we kind of know a date for spring football. I think IU's done in the portal for now. We'll see. I think they still have close to a handful of spots left, but with the academic calendar, it looks like they're finished. We'll keep you updated on recruiting for football, and then basketball as well. We're coming down the stretch run, a big win over Purdue on Tuesday night that kind of opens up a path to the NCAA tournament for IU. They hit the road for a big West Coast swing starting on Saturday
at 5 o'clock.
Saturday at 5 o'clock, and then they play, I think, the 3rd at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be in Colorado, so it's only 8 p.m. for me. So I got you there, TJ. And then they come home. So a big end of the season for Darren DeVries and his staff. But we'll have all your football covered and get into previews as well.